A couple was once excited to host their rabbi for Shabbat dinner. They spent all day preparing. They made a delicious dinner, roast chicken, noodle kugel, the works. The wife set the table with a crisp white tablecloth and fresh flowers and put the candles, wine, and challah in the center. The rabbi arrived. They all chatted for a bit and then sat down for dinner. They blessed the candles, they made kiddush over the wine, and then they turned to the challah to make motzi. And the husband saw that the challah was uncovered. "How could you forget the challah cover?" he cried to his wife. "You're embarrassing us in front of the rabbi." The rabbi stepped in. She said, "Do you know where the tradition of covering the challah comes from?" "Of course," the husband said proudly. "According to the Talmud Yerushalmi as quoted by the Torah, we can technically use either wine or challah for kiddush, but wine is preferred. We cover the challah so it's not forced to witness us choosing the wine. We also cover it so the challah isn't embarrassed that it's blessed last, after the candles and the wine." "Right," the rabbi said. "We go to such lengths to protect the challah from embarrassment. The challah, which is bread and has no feelings. So how can you embarrass your wife like this?" Because Judaism matters to us, we want to do it right. We want to do right by God and our ancestors. A perfect Shabbat tablescape, complete with challah cover. Reciting Hebrew liturgy without stumbling over the unfamiliar words. A full 25 hours of fasting on Yom Kippur. Ritual observance is how we remind ourselves and show the world that we are proud to be Jews. Traditions can orient us to God, to gratitude, and to each other. The Hebrew word halacha, often translated as Jewish law, is based on the root halach, to walk or to go. A more literal translation of halacha, then, is walkway or path. Jewish ritual exists to point us, to show us a way. It's not meant to consume us. But when we are so eager to do Judaism right, we can become preoccupied with the details. With best intentions, ritual can become something that is daunting or distracting, or even something that we come to resent. The prophets decry ritual adherence unaccompanied by moral observance. "Is this the fast I desire?" Isaiah cries. Observing religious rituals without living righteously misses the whole point of Judaism. Over-complexifying our religion's ritual aspects can make us risk losing sight of the bigger picture. And that is a key message of this week's Torah portion. Stop overcomplicating things. In Parashat Nitzavim, we read the famous lines of Deuteronomy 30, read also on Yom Kippur. "Surely this instruction which I enjoin upon you today is not too mystifying for you, nor is it beyond reach. Lo nifleti, this isn't concealed exclusive knowledge. What I want from you isn't confusing," God says. "No mysteries here." And perhaps this is a polemic against the misconception that God's will is elusive and unknowable. Here, God says, "You're overcomplicating things." The Bible continues, "It is not in the heavens that you should say, 'Who among us can go up to the heavens and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it?' Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, 'Who among us can cross to the other side of the sea and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it?' No, the thing is very close to you, in your mouth and in your heart, to observe it. It is not in the heavens, lo bashamayim hi. What God wants from us isn't impossibly lofty. These are earthy, doable things. 16th century Italian Rabbi Sforno taught, we don't need prophets or sages to decipher God's will. Velo me'ever layam hi, nor is it beyond the sea. All that God wants of us, we can do right here in our actual lives, geographically grounded in New York City or Tel Aviv or Minnesota or wherever we might be. We don't need to look overseas or to look to the imagined past of our ancestors. Wherever we are, whatever historical moment we live in, we can live according to God's will. Ki karov elecha, it is very close to you. If we are honest with ourselves, we know what God wants of us. Decency, to be a mensch, nothing more and nothing less. The Torah insists, living righteously is not complicated stuff. And that said, uncomplicated does not mean easy. Often decency comes with a personal cost and means swimming against the cultural current. Decency means dealing fairly in business, paying wages promptly, biting our tongue and avoiding gossip, giving to the needy, building and funding schools, choosing mercy over the human instinct for revenge. Decency requires extending our time, resources, and humanity in sometimes uncomfortable ways. Living righteously can be much harder than ritual observance. Here's a second story about a dinner party with a rabbi, a midrash from Vayikra Rabbah. The great sage, Rabbi Yanai, was walking one day when he saw a well-dressed man. Rabbi Yanai mistook him for a Torah scholar, and when the man invited him over for dinner, Yanai accepted. The man welcomed Yanai into his home and gave him food and drink. Yanai tested his host in knowledge of Torah and found that he possessed none. He tested him in Mishnah, but did not find him knowledgeable, in Agadah, but did not find him knowledgeable, in Gemara, but he did not find him knowledgeable. Yanai asked his host to recite the grace after meals, but the man declined. He didn't know it. Yanai was fed up. He was a great sage after all. He felt disgusted by his host's ignorance and embarrassed to be dining with a person he considered so beneath him in stature. He snapped at the man and called him a dog and got up to leave. The man rose and caught hold of Yanai. The man cried, "You have my inheritance and you are withholding it from me." "What inheritance of yours do I have?" Yanai asked. The man answered, "Once I passed a school and I heard children saying, 'Moses gave us Torah, the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob.' The verse did not say the inheritance of the congregation of Yanai. It says the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob." The man knew that he had as much a stake in Jewish life as any other Jew, even the greatest scholar. The text he quoted was just a simple verse he overheard school children recite, but from it he intuited a central principle of Judaism. This inheritance belongs to all of us. Yanai asked his host, "Why did we merit to dine together?" The man answered, "In all my days, I never heard a bad word about someone and passed it on. I never saw two people quarreling and did not make peace between them." Yanai exclaimed, "You have such derech eretz, and I called you a dog." Derech eretz, human decency. Yanai realized he had been a horrible elitist and a terrible guest. This is now my editorializing, not the midrash. The man was righteous in all sorts of ways Yanai was not, sensitive to the feelings of others, discreet in his speech, committed to making peace, and, luckily for Yanai, forgiving. In other words, he was a mensch. He understood what the great rabbi did not. Jewish wisdom is a guide towards decency, not a currency for superiority. Fashioning Torah is something exclusive, something that only a special few can access and understand, misses the point completely. Lo nifleti, it is not so complicated. We know what to do. We just need to do it. Shabbat Shalom.